Alright you guys, what's up? It's Mott
and Nick,
and we're here to talk to you today about something a lot of creatives find really challenging to talk about, and that's tracking your numbers. So as a creative, not only is it important to really master your craft, but it's also really important to know like where you're going, what you're going to be doing, all of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that tracking your numbers not only in your personal life, but in your business life is so important. It can make or break you. So
before we get into any of that, make sure that you go ahead and click subscribe so that we can keep you updated in all of our Garnish Your Growth episodes. So let's get into it. So the number one thing I'd say to start off with is to have clarity. Clarity plays such a big part inside of just tracking your numbers in general. Tracking them is really going to give you an ultimate big picture of where you are, what you're trying to do, what your goal is, like where you're trying to actually set up and where you want to be. If you don't take the time to track your numbers, then you're really going to just be this ambiguous, creative, floating around, just having art sprinkled all around. If you want to treat it like a business, you have to start by knowing what your business is. Did you track your numbers before you started here?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's like you just work, and then you pay bills, and then you pay yourself, you pay your bills, and then whatever is left is yours. And I think when you track your numbers and you really know what's going on, like Mott said, you can set goals for yourself, but you also know what you can budget, what you can cut back on, and how you can really make the most of the money you're making.
So first, let's start off with a little bit of my background. So I've owned a salon for almost 10 years. Half of that time was split between me being a solopreneur and then having a brick and mortar space here inside of Raleigh, North Carolina. So one of the biggest differences I can say is that when I was in a studio by myself, it wasn't really as it didn't seem as important back then for me to track my numbers because it was really just me. But if I would have taken that same setup and tried to open up a bigger space or have more team members or a Nico on board, you can't really take that approach and be successful within your business. One of the biggest things that needed to change is that I needed organization inside of my numbers. So for me, that meant hiring someone out. I'll be honest, I'm not great with numbers. I'm just not. I don't think a lot of hairstylists are, but at the same time, it's so important for you to know what your numbers are. So let's start with what do we even mean by numbers? So as an artist, you are doing a craft, you are performing a service every single day. Money is being deposited into your account, and then you have money that is coming out of that account to pay for supplies, to pay taxes. These are all business expenses. So you want to make sure that you have a cut and dry business and personal when it comes to your account. Is that something that you had set up when you first started?
No. I tracked what I was bringing in, and obviously what I was paying out, but it was all more roundabout numbers instead of true to the penny. I didn't track what my average ticket was or what my average day looked like. I just knew random numbers.
Yeah. So it first started with me. The person who brought me clarity was a coach inside of a company called Inspiring Champions. So if you are unfamiliar with that company and you happen to be a hairstylist, make sure you check them out. We'll have it in the details section below. Yeah. But Inspiring Champions really changed the game for your girl. I went there for a class on how to grow, but at the same time, I didn't really know what that would look like. They taught me everything from tracking the numbers to what to actually track. Like Nico just said, there's an average service ticket, meaning that in a week, you might have 25 or 30 guests that come in and see you. If you add all that up together and then divide by how many guests that you've seen, that gives you your average ticket. If you know that your average ticket is sitting at, throw out a number, Nick. $300. Then that average ticket, as far as the industry is concerned, is a very high average ticket, which is probably going to put you in the top 1% being inside of your industry. If all this sounds pretty intriguing but also kind of vague,
what's the top 1%?
Yeah, all of those things you can find inside of Inspiring Champions. There's a lot of coaching programs out there, so that's the first thing I would say to do is whatever industry you're in, there has to be some kind of coaching. There has to be some kind of literature that you can find to give you clarity inside of what these numbers mean. So that was like the biggest thing for me when it that was the biggest thing for me when it came from being a solopreneur, and then also having like a template for my staff to follow to give them achievable goals.
I like how you say solopreneur.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds, I like the way that sounds.
I mean, it's just being real. It's a solopreneur. It's just like a salon of one.
But I think with that, it sounds like it's a business, which is how you have to treat what you do and why you need to track your numbers.
My coach made sure that I took the time to come up with these systems and processes, even when it was just me and it seemed like a little like unnecessary. I'm like, girl, I'm good. Like, it's just me. But it was really easy to have people filter into that system because I already had it in place inside of my business. That was the biggest takeaway for me when going from my solopreneur space into a brick and mortar space. So if you are trying to grow your business, if that's what you have envisioned for yourself, I would definitely suggest making sure that you take the time personally, before you grow a staff, before you grow your brand, and just make sure that you know what numbers are important to you inside of your business. Which leads us into our next topic, which is getting out of debt, debt in general, a rainy day fund, future planning. Like, before you actually open up shop, I think that's a super important thing that also a lot of creatives don't really take the time to pour into. There is wealth management. There are, inside of any bank that you walk into, you can talk to someone in the bank and have a sit down, like really schedule it out and say, hey, I'm thinking about opening up a business. This is how much debt I have. This is about how much it would take for me to open up the business. Like, come with a business plan, ready, set, go, and then they'll look at you like a professional instead of some like starving artist. That was very, very helpful for me when I was first starting to open up my business, is to make sure that I had a record of cash flow. So when it comes to rainy day fund, Nico, you kind of had experience with that recently.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I don't own a business, but I do think that your personal, like, financial things, I don't know the great word for that, but whatever's going on in your life financially, you need to treat that as a business as well. And even if you don't own anything, like, honestly, like, get out of debt. First things first, start with a rainy day fund and then get out of debt. I'm going to say that again. First things first, start a rainy day fund. That can be $500. A good one is $1,000. That way, if there's ever an emergency happening in your life, you have a stack on deck, ready to go, and you're not frazzled like, oh, where am I going to get this money? You know that you always have that for you, for whatever you need in an emergency. And then from that point, get out of debt. Do whatever you can, throw all your money into getting out of debt, because if you can handle your personal financials, then you will most certainly be able to handle your business.
Absolutely. Can I speak on that for just a second?
Go for it.
Okay, so I think it's cool that Nico and I have two completely different perspectives for the same topic. So inside of tracking your numbers, like she just said, it just completely like washed over me as soon as she was talking. I'm like, damn, that's right. Like, you have to really make sure that you do check-ins. I look at Garnish's account and my personal account every single day. There's not a day that goes by where I don't check the accounts, because you never know what's coming out and what's going in unless you take the time to make it a priority. And to me, anything that's important, I'm doing daily.
Yeah, I agree. You gotta know your numbers. And that's how you catch things happening. Like, if something gets drafted out that's not supposed to, or like an amount is wrong, you can catch it immediately rather than trying to call like a week or two later, like, missed that.
I think as creatives, because that's really why we started this channel, is to talk to a lot of our creatives inside of every industry, not just hair, not just in the beauty industry, but if you're any kind of creative, whether you have a side hustle, whether you are doing this, 100% of the time, take the time to invest into figuring out your own personal numbers. It makes the biggest difference whenever you show up as an artist, but you also have a really keen business acumen about you. And you don't really find that 100% of the time. Whenever I'm working with an artist inside of their industry and they come into our arrangement very professionally and they know their rates, they know how much they're charging, they know how much time it's going to take them, it makes me more inclined to work with that person.
Yeah, agreed, because it's professional and it looks like a business. Like,
Absolutely.
Oh.
It looks professional and it looks like a business. I also think, like, bringing it back to the babies. So myself and Nico were both moms, and our kids are watching.
Yeah.
Like, your daughter is watching how you spend money,
Absolutely.
what you do. And one of the stories that Nico told inside of our studio, we do something called Tuesday Gratitude, where we kind of share about our weekend and also what we're grateful for. And I remember that story that you told about how you and Micah set a goal. And you guys were going to go Christmas shopping, I think it was.
Yep.
And you guys had worked towards this goal, and she was right alongside of you, like saving money, like, okay, Mom, it's almost time, it's almost here. And then the big day came, and you were able to go and shop.
Yes.
And
it felt good.
Yeah.
So she gets an allowance, and we work on saving. But it was like, as long as we can, I think we like took out eating out or something like that. Like, we're not going to eat out for like this amount of time, and we're going to each save our money, and then we're going to ball out at her favorite store.
Yes, for the ball out.
Yeah, it was so much fun.
But I think that teaches our kids too, like, how important money is and how important your relationship to money is.
Yeah.
I remember too, when I was first kind of being introduced to this with my coach, is money mindset, which is how you perceive money, where money sits with you. Is money something that you feel ashamed of? Is money something that you're like, you know, just trying to get more and more and more of? Are you greedy with money? Are you frivolous with money? Those habits are going to show up so many different ways all throughout your business. So if you can check your money mindset and make sure that you have a positive and like peaceful relationship with money, it will come in, it will wash out. But at the end of the day, you know what needs to stay inside of your business, and you also know where you kind of have a little bit more like cushion and free reign. And that's really where it gets good, is where you can start to establish those principles of, this is how much I have, this is what I have coming in my day. Like, take the time to look over your week. How much money do you have coming in versus how many things you have going out, which is something that inside of Garnish we practice every single day. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
You have to come in and make sure that your numbers are correct, meaning you know how many people are coming in, what we need for the service, and really what you plan on bringing in that day. It just makes kind of hitting the end of your week like a, ooh, I got it, or, I fumbled. Because as an artist, you don't have to feel guilty about wanting to reach a certain like monetary goal. I feel like that makes it into a real business.
I agree. When it comes to tracking your numbers and tracking your financials, just giving yourself grace, having patience with yourself, always cheering when you make your goal and reach your goal, and then if you don't, just like using that as like gas to push you to make it the next time. I think that you have to be prepared to sacrifice when you start to really live your life in this kind of way, because you might have to take some things away for a second to build up another aspect of your business, and then it makes it so much better when you reach that goal, because then you get to have that stuff back.
I'll say this too before we close out, is that if what we're talking about is kind of foreign to you, I would suggest making sure that you really get gritty with like what your goals are. Like, take a second to just like dim out the light a little bit, write some stuff down, like start with something easy. How much are all your bills? Like, just how much is everything? How much does it take to live your life? Not the frivolous way, but just your bills in general. And then see how you've been doing for the first of the year. Like, take 1 month, how much did you make versus how much did you spend? That's a really good place to start. And then from there, build on that. And I always encourage everybody, if you do not know something, take the time to become a master at it. Rent books, listen to podcasts. There's so much good information out there. There's a wealth of knowledge inside of money management, inside of numbers being tracked. Like, take the time to make that part of your business, because it truly is. So we hope you gained a lot of value out of this. If you like the content, please be sure to click subscribe below, and that way you'll never miss an episode. So for Garnish Your Growth, this is Mott,
And
signing out.